And so now I'm passing it on to Joshua.
So for column B, we have expand and strengthen outreach, both locally and globally. So a lot of things that came out, we talked about all that we do out in the local community and how we are a worldwide church. And I think being connected denominationally, tying us to the fact that the majority of Free Methodists are outside of North America, outside the United States. And so continue to expand those connections and deepen them. So the first one is kind of explicit on that. It's a strengthening connections with global missions. So we have Jamie and Alyssa and all their work that they do in Madagascar. And I think tying into that, looking at who's there this spring, and then Kay and Russ and other groups have been there, and seeing that we have a really good connection with our communities that we've kind of branched out to. But what does it look like to deepen those, make them more complex? Or thinking about Dennis and Kyle's work in Costa Rica, and the fact that we have the youth group consistently connect with the same group and growing deep relationships there. Kind of seeing that as a really great thing, but then asking ourselves, is there more space for us to grow in that? Are there ways that the congregation at large can be more participatory in some of those relationships that we have? Second down, we have the focus on families and children and community outreach. So Santa Barbara is an expensive place to live. It's expensive if you have kids, if you're a family, you're trying to raise them. So asking, where's our involvement in that? How do we become more intentional to reach those needs as a congregation? And internally, that can look something like thinking about our children and families ministries and the parts that when people come, how do we make this place welcoming? But then how do we kind of get out and how do we reach in that way? And I think externally we can think about how people can connect. So in January, I know we're having a Habitat Build Day. They're connecting with families moving into a new house, which is one of the main expenses in Santa Barbara. So what does it mean for us to think more intentionally about those ways in which we're connecting to folks that sometimes have one of the highest needs in a really expensive, beautiful, but expensive city? Next down, we have utilizing the CDCC to address current and emerging community needs. So thinking about 50 years ago, the CDCC started, and there was this awareness that there's a need for counseling, there's a need for senior care, and there's a need for child care. And I think those are all still here, and we do a great job in that. So how do we first kind of maximize what we're doing, and then how do we look with new eyes to what's going on in our city? How do we have some intentionality, perhaps in the counseling center? We have a large Spanish-speaking population in Santa Barbara, but not that many counselors who are Spanish-speaking, especially those who come from a faith perspective. So where is it that we can step in with what we're doing and more effectively meet the needs of people around us? So kind of thinking in those ways, think of how we can just use the CDCC as we have already, but kind of maximizing it for what's going on and kind of join in on what God is already doing in the city. And next we have emphasizing being impactful Christians in the local community. So we can talk about all these different ministries and things that we're doing, and those are wonderful that we have those, and we hope people get involved. But for some people, their station in life is that they can't spend multiple hours a week doing certain things. But are we equipping them to be light in their workplace, to be light when they go out and they coach Little League soccer, or they go to parent-teacher meetings, when they're involved in all of those different ways? So having some more intentionality to do that with the people who are here, and instead of kind of guilting folks for not serving, teaching them to serve where they already are. We kind of think about the Center for Transformational Leadership that Kelly Swartzberg and some others here are involved in, that is kind of a conference level thing that we're training leaders for the church, training them for the business world, for the civic world, and academia, and kind of taking that and bringing that to Santa Barbara and thinking more intentionally about all of our congregation members and how do we do that? How do we train really effectively and think really Christianly about the work that everyone is doing? And the last one that we have is continue to focus on church planning. So we've kind of done this a couple times with the Pura Vida, we've done this with LOG, Light and Life Calita, and thinking that we don't want to stop that. We don't want to kind of ever settle completely in this place where this congregation becomes insular. So thinking about what's out there, what are the ways in which God is kind of multiplying this community. So there's a little bit of that, thinking about the West Side Initiative of how do we change and spin out and do new things. And there's also some of this congregation is growing, which is awesome. The numbers have been going up, more people are coming here. But this building is limited. So I think we have to think about how do we not simply stay tied to this place, but be willing to move with God as God says, hey, there's a need here, there's a need there. And that might mean multiplying a little bit and church planting in different places. I think about kind of the initiative coming from the conference in Denny, saying, we need to spread out. There are lots of cities on the coast that have no Free Methodist presence, some that have very little church presence. So what is our role in kind of cultivating leaders who are going to step into those places? And what's our role to support those movements and changes? So for us thinking about expanding and deepening globally and locally, that's what we're wanting to do. Those are kind of the things that as we start this plan, we want to work out the details of what that actually looks like. Thanks. Let me pass it on.